Yeah, and I mean, sports medicine's come such a long way too. I mean, just the recovery process with a lot of this stuff. I mean, you see kids now, when I played baseball, they would tear their rotator cuff and kind of they'd be done. And now you see these kids tear their rotator cuff or Tommy John's was
Mhm.
another one.
Yeah.
Now they come back throwing harder,
Right.
and a lot of it's because of the methods they have, but also just the recovery process. I mean, they're just coming back stronger. And I mean, it's like, training at Chadwick's and
Right.
stuff like we do. Um, just how you train now is totally different
Mhm.
than just the knowledge and the supplementation and everything. It's just they're kind of, what would you say? It's kind of like they know how to give you these doses in
Yeah,
just the
way
right
more
amount.
efficient in I didn't even finish PT, I don't think. It was yeah, it wasn't I didn't do very well with it. I know.
I hear you,
Looking
man.
back, yeah, it wasn't great, but
Well, you probably didn't know.
I didn't know.
I think a lot of that was it's just not knowing how important that stuff is. And, you know, it- if you look back, I mean, you probably love softball, but maybe it wasn't as important to you.
Yeah, it wasn't.
So, how did you get Madeline into tennis? Because, I mean, I heard this was a big deal. I talked to Daniel the other
Mhm.
night, and he was
Mhm.
like, he was headed out to get ice cream for everything. And
Mhm.
I love tennis. I
Mhm.
mean, I really, I like those individual sports like that. But
She played softball, but we didn't start sports until later
mm,
with her, so she didn't play softball till 9,
yeah,
which was, by that point she's behind, especially around here. And so,
no kidding.
yeah, I mean, she was on a great team though, which was amazing, and so they always won regardless of how she was, but she wasn't that athletic. It wasn't like we were she was begging to play sports and we were saying no. She just wasn't that into it or that athletic. So it's been really good because both Daniel and I, played team sports and we wanted her to try something and work at it, see success, and just kind of gain, listening to coaches and being a teammate and all of that. So it was great. Her school, you can start, which is kind of nice, to start a sport in high school
Yeah,
is kind of unheard of.
yeah.
So that's really nice that she started tennis. So we're thrilled.
Well, and we have three, and Andrew, he beat to his own drum, and he's the youngest too, and so similar with him, we tried the traditional sports with him, and it's funny because you would see the ability, he just didn't care about it.
Hmm.
So we tried golf and breakdancing, and lo and behold, that was his thing. And just being patient with it. God makes them all different,
Right.
and I for me, for sports, I love sports, but I try not to get caught up into it. And I have before, where you
Hmm.
kind of have FOMO, and
Hmm.
but you got to really back out and look at it. What is sports really good at?
Hmm.
And I think it gives a person a controlled environment to go in and face adversity without it wrecking
Hmm.
their life
Hmm.
or severely altering it, which we're going to
Right.
talk about today.
Hmm.
Um, and they learn how to overcome it because you're going to face it. Same thing as the gym. That's what I
Right.
love going to the gym for. And so
Hmm.
even if you don't have ambitions to be a college athlete or even beyond,
Hmm.
that's the importance of it. Whether it's weightlifting or whatever, just find something.
Hmm.
Just find something.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, all right, I'm going to do something a little different today.
Okay.
As you know, I was on the phone with your husband the other night, and I asked him if he had anything he'd like to share with you, and if he minded um, if I shared it on the
Oh,
podcast.
gosh. Okay.
And so, with your approval, I'd like to share something he
Of
wrote for you.
course. Yeah.
Now, I am from East Tennessee, so, bear with my reading capabilities. Let's see. Jamie, we've learned together that if you live long enough, trials and difficult circumstances will find you. That's the unfortunate reality of the broken world we live in. What sets you apart is the way that you've responded to life's challenges. and how you've never wavered in your trust in the Lord. I'm grateful and blessed to have had you as my wife when tragedy struck our family. Sorry. Losing William was something that could have easily pushed us in different directions and torn our family apart. Instead, you leaned in and encouraged us to focus on the promises of the Father, and you dug into your role as a mom for Madeline and later for Annie. We had so much support and help in that season from family, dear friends, our church family, even strangers. When the fog lifted and life began to return to normal, you had the awareness to see how blessed we had been through that experience. You've used every day since to serve others walking through hardships. You could be doing anything, and instead you spend your time finding ways to meet the needs of women walking through their darkest days. That is so unique, and it makes me so proud to witness how resilient and faithful you have been. I'm grateful for our story and thankful to God that you are my wife. I love you, Daniel.
Gosh, like we're crying on minute one.
Well,
Oh,
I,
that
I
was
mean,
so
I, I,
sweet.
I wish I
Oh,
could write like that.
oh, he's the best. He's the
He's
best.
a good man.
Yes.
Um,
I
so
love that. Thank you
hearing
for
that,
asking that.
yeah. So, what's going on through your heart? I mean, what's in your heart right now? I mean,
Um, I'm so grateful for Daniel. One thing early on in that note that kind of stuck out to me was him saying that I had unwavering faith. And thank you. And so yesterday was 18 years since my dad died.
mm,
And to me, so that's obviously has been on my mind a lot this date approaching. And not very many people even know that. Even Daniel the night before I told him and that tomorrow was the day and he was like, "Gosh, I didn't even, that's not on his mind obviously." And um I look back at that time, Daniel and I were engaged. We're 3 months from getting married,
yeah,
and my dad and I's relationship was really hard. And as Daniel and I got closer to getting married and my dependence on my dad got less and less and more on
mm,
Daniel, that basically pissed off my dad and it got worse and worse between him and I. And so there were some hard conversations there, but I was so grateful for Daniel for the way that he walked with me
mm,
through that hard relationship.
yeah,
But I knew going into marriage, it was going to get worse between my dad and I. And
mm,
then, we got married May 17th. So 3 months before our wedding, he killed himself. And my faith wavered. I was so mad at God. I thought,
mm,
why would you do this to me 3 months before I got married? I had just recently started going to Andy Stanley's church. It changed my prayer life. I was kind of wild in college and I was digging into the word, a small group in Atlanta. I was just kind of digging in and truly like, I'm like, Lord, whatever it is you have for me. Well, then that happened with my dad.
mm,
And I was like, so mad.
yeah,
But I also had to hold it together. We were getting married. It was just I'm the only child of my mom and my dad. So we had, a house full of stuff. I had all this. He left me with all of this stuff to deal with.
yeah,
But Daniel, I was so grateful for the way the Lord had, and I didn't see it then because I didn't see it. I could not, I just was not in the place to see it. But I can look back now and see the Lord providing me with Daniel in that time of
mm,
walking through. That was our first thing that really, before we got married, kind of it shook my faith. And then it was
yeah,
like we were getting married. And so that first year of marriage was great, but I was really internally struggling. So it's interesting, his view of, I think back then when that happened, and I know he's talking about my response to William,
Mm,
but it's so my response for William is directly connected to the Lord's faithfulness in just his patience and grace as I really kind of struggled with losing my dad and
mm,
thought, I don't really know if I want what your will for me is my dad killing himself 3 months before my wedding. Really? Like this is like how can this be good? How
right.
can this help me? It just was I was so mad. And it took me the next couple years as we got married, and Daniel was so patient with me, and we moved here and started to find a church that really preached the truth, and slowly over those next years, and I can look back now of my entire life, and I was kind of flooded with emotions yesterday as I remembered that day 18 years ago when my dad called me, and he called me right before he shot himself, and he just said, "I just want you to know that I love you."
Mm,
And I was like, "Dad, stop." And he's like, "I just want you to know that I love you," and hung up the phone and killed himself. And so as I think back to that day, now I'm in such a different position. I can look back in my entire life, the Lord was preparing me for losing William
mm,
to where I didn't waver in my faith at all. Whenever I two coworkers met me at my door, I was teaching in Ensworth, and two coworkers met me at my door and said, "William choked. He's not breathing. You need to go to the hospital." And I had been back to praying for the Lord's will to be done in my life, but I had gotten to the point of truly meaning it with open hands, like, "Lord, whatever it is you have for me, I know
mm,
you just give me the strength to get through it. I know you're going to be there." And so when that happened, I did lean in, but it was because the Lord had spent my entire life preparing me for that
mhm.
moment.
Yeah.
And so,
And the time it was '08,
mhm,
and then William, that was 7 years later, right?
it was
2015?
15.
Yeah.
And we truly did build a family, and I'm so grateful for the way Daniel. I remember when that happened with William, it happened on a Friday. He choked at lunch, and I get to the hospital, I see him, I know he's gone. There's an emptiness in his eyes. I know he's gone. And the Lord gave me a peace in knowing he was gone. I mean, this sounds weird. I never even prayed for a miracle for him. There was no brain activity. They did get him stable. His heart started to beat again and everything. And I never even prayed for a miracle. I just knew he was gone. I knew that he was in the arms of Jesus.
Yeah.
And so that night, we finally, it's after midnight, we get back to our room, just Daniel and I. And my mind immediately went to, I told him, I said, "I think we can get through this, but you cannot leave me."
Mm,
And he was like, "What?" I mean, he was just so confused. Like our son was back there
right.
on a ventilator. But my mind instantly went to, okay, we're going to lose our son. And now our marriage is going to fall apart. I
Mm,
just knew the stats were so high on divorce after child loss.
mm,
And so, I know he is grateful for the way I leaned in, but man, he leaned in too and made a promise to me of, "I will not leave you."
yeah.
And
And I think that was important. And, I would say that, you know, spiritually, and you just knew. And I look at that as more diligence, because at times like that, that's when Satan tries to kind of creep in and create doubt and fear.
absolutely.
And, to kind of head that off.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's vigilance or diligence, whichever one, but you were vigilant about standing guard and making sure to call awareness to something, to not
Mhm.
let it even creep in,
Mhm.
because I think a lot of marriage is part of the issues, and just relationships in general is people don't communicate enough.
Mhm.
And that's why I enjoy. Micah is she's definitely more on the introverted side. So
Mhm.
when it comes to sharing information, how she feels, it takes her a minute to put it all together. And knowing you,
Mhm.
and you're a little bit more outspoken, I kind of assume that Daniel may be a little bit more, uh, take a little bit more time to share. But
Mhm.
and that's why I thought that him putting that down on paper might be able to give that to you. And I'm so glad that he did, and you
Mhm.
allowed me to share it with you. And but in marriages, people don't take that opportunity, and I think that fosters and creates room for doubt and
Mhm.
fear, and it's things that just need to be, you know, they need to get out, right?
Absolutely. And we immediately went into counseling. Our church was so great and said, as long as you'll go to counseling, we will pay for it.
Hmm.
Um, which is so great because there wasn't this like, okay, yeah, we both want to go, but here's $175 for an hour, or like
Right.
getting done with the hour and being like, okay, there was a chunk of change. Like it just totally eliminated that. And at Faithful Restored, we do counseling grants for that reason of knowing that financial pressure of counseling is there no matter, you know, how much money could we have afforded it? Yes, but then it's like it just still there would have been a little bit of a barrier there of um but Daniel agreed to go to counseling, and I always tell couples because the communication piece is so important, and
Hmm.
when you are with a counselor, like we wouldn't have sat around and talked about our feelings
Yeah.
of loss
Right.
together. We just wouldn't have done that.
Sure.
And then, like you said, I think the enemy uses that space there that, typically women are more emotional. I'm way more emotional. And so, then I'm feeling like, why are you not even sad? I don't see him be sad.
Yeah.
I see him dive into work,
Yep.
which like
That's how he
kind
handled
of
it.
makes me mad
Yeah.
because, so processing it with a counselor, and he did a lot of the talking at counseling because the counselor was like getting him to talk through things. And I remember one point of counseling, the counselor said, what is kind of something you don't want to address?
Mm.
And I said the day that it happened, because
Yeah.
we both had very different experiences. Daniel came to the house. They called him. He worked closer to our house. So he got to the house when paramedics were working on William
Mm.
and trying to remove the obstruction. And a paramedic even said to him, like, I've seen someone come back from this.
Yeah.
And so he had this hope and just a totally different experience
It's
than
wild.
I did. And, so I told the counselor, I was like, just kind of like that day of what happened, I thought was just going to be so painful. And he's like, okay. He's like, let's talk about that day. I was like, what the heck? I just told you I didn't like, okay. But I'm so glad because we would not have really sat around and be like, okay, so what were you feeling when you got to the house that day and
Yeah.
saw paramedics working on our son? So I think counseling, because that communication piece is so important.
Yeah.
And when you don't have that communication, like you said, there's doubt that comes in. And so the enemy will like kind of foster this false narrative of
Yeah.
like, well, he's not sad. He doesn't care as much,
That's right.
or, just all these lies that are not true. So I was grateful Daniel agreed to go to counseling as long as I said I thought we should go. And then the
Yeah.
second I was like, okay, I think we're good. We don't have to go back. He's like, I'm out. And but I'm so grateful because
Yeah.
as long as I would have asked him to be there, he would have been there.
Well, I just people don't realize how intentional you need to be. And,
Right.
and I mean, think about it from this perspective. If you want to lose weight, what do you have to do? You have to
Hmm.
be intentional about your
Right.
nutrition. If you want to get in shape and build a healthier body, what you got to do? You got to be intentional and show up at the gym and be
Hmm.
consistent with it. Same with marriage. If you want to be a professional that makes a lot of money, what do you have to be? You have to go
Hmm.
to college. You have to be intentional with it. You have to have a
Hmm.
routine. Marriage is the same way, but I think the term love and what that marriage looks like has been completely skewed by
Hmm.
what you see on TV. And a lot of times people think, well, there'll be that right moment I can say what needs to be said. But most people never get that right moment because, like you said, you start to get it's like I talk with our staff here at AEC about whether it's good news or bad news. The worst thing you can do is let your client uh, kind of imagine what's
Yeah.
going on because it's
Hmm.
never going to be good.
Hmm.
And so they're going to always remember, even if it's not real and you come back a week later with phenomenal news, they're going to typically remember what they emotionally think, which is
Hmm.
bad.
Mhm.
It's always bad when you leave it up
Right.
to, imagination. So tackling it, getting it out there. I never like to,
Mhm.
and are very similar in that. I don't even like to go to bed
Mhm.
if I think Mike is pissed at me. Number one,
Yeah.
because she may kill me in my sleep. I will never kill myself. Okay, if I'm dead, and if you hear
It
that, you're
was
like, y'all need to check that out. Okay, but but two, just the peace that
Mhm.
comes from just getting it out and having that conversation, even if you agree to disagree,
Right.
it's just
Mhm.
there's just a peace that comes with it,
Mhm.
and it comes with your marriage. Interested to ask, was there a scripture during that time? I've got several that are kind of my life verses. Was there a scripture that
Mm.
you kind of clung to at that time, or was it just like I was in the Word all the time? What was it like?
Initially, it was interesting. I remember a friend came over and she brought lunch one day and we were just talking. And she's like, "Man, I bet you," and this was like probably within the first month. And she was like, "Man, I bet you are just so prayerful right now."
Mm,
And I was like, I couldn't even pray. Like everything felt overwhelming. And
mm,
I didn't correct her. I didn't say like, "Actually, I'm not praying." Um, but I will say people then were praying on our behalf
mm,
because it was so painful. And I still have moments like this even in December over the anniversary of like the goodness of God is overwhelming because I knew he was going to bring us through this. I knew that, and still, 10 years later, just his goodness and faithfulness when I'm in that season of grief is just overwhelming in a good way.
yeah.
But I would say there were multiple. Like I love Jesus is the same today, yesterday, and forever. Like
Mm,
that was important for me to understand of none of this is based on my circumstance.
mhm,
The same God that I believed in and that has good plans for me. I at Chadwick's when we do our whatever parathetic breathing, I don't know, whatever you do at the end, para
I don't know. I've never done this
something. Okay.
before. I
Well,
think I do it.
with breathing, like you put your
You
legs
talking
up
about
and
when they
breathe.
whoop your butt and you're
Yeah, and
like
then at
you
the end
can't
you're
catch
like
your
dying and yeah, it's
breath?
in my
Yeah,
thing. It's like, okay,
the
how
thing
many
I did
minutes of
today.
parathetic breathing? I don't know what word it is. I'm like, okay.
Parasympathetic.
Yeah, okay, that's it.
Sometimes I can come out with a word or two.
Yeah, that might be it. I don't know if
No,
you're
it's
right.
wrong. I
Okay.
trust me, but it
Whatever it is,
sounded good.
the breathing at the end. I put in my headphones and just lay there, and I always play this song, Good Plans, because I want to be rooted in that truth of the Lord's plans for me are good. So it doesn't when I leave that gym, whatever happens to me, I need to cling to that truth that the Lord's plans are good for me.
Mm,
And, so I try to cling to that truth. James, I love the whole book of James, but James, consider it joy.
1, 2 through 8. Consider it pure
Experience
joy.
trials. I
Yep.
mean, that I
My
couldn't see that when my dad
oh
died.
yeah.
That was the verse that I put on our Christmas card. So my dad died in February, and that Christmas in '08 was our first, little Christmas card together as as a married couple. And I was like, I'm going to put a verse on here. I've done it every year since. And that was the verse I put on there because I wanted to I was clinging to it. I didn't really believe it. I could not see any joy. I couldn't see the maturity, the endurance that it promised, but I knew the Lord was doing something, but
Yeah.
I just clung to that. So I would say early on when I was walking through that with my dad, I more or less like clung to these verses.
Yeah.
And then when it happened with William, I could look at them and see them. And then with starting Faithful Restored, it's like in First Corinthians, when he comforts us so that we can comfort others in times of affliction, that I cling to now because I feel like that is what we are doing at Faithful Restored.
Yeah.
And so clinging to the promises of he comforts us so that we can comfort others. So There's multiple. I
Well, going
repeat
back,
Psalm 23 all the time. All of that,
yep.
um, just is so rich. And so
Well, it's funny how the different verses, James 1, 2 through 8, I read it every morning.
mhm,
Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds. And I won't recite the whole thing, but my favorite part from that verse is if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask
mhm,
God who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt.
mhm,
Because when you doubt, you're like a wave of the sea blown and tossed. Okay, I
mhm.
did read it all again. Never mind.
Yeah.
But the point is, when you're asking for something, when you want more, well, you're going to get you're going to go through trials
Mhm,
and you're going to get pruned, you're going to get refined, you're going to get put into the fiery crucible and you can't doubt.
mhm,
And it wants to sneak in,
mhm,
and Joshua 1 Joshua 1 one of my favorite ones, God tells Joshua 3 times, be strong and courageous, right?
mhm.
And so when you're going through those seasons, it's being strong and courageous. But those helped me, as you know, I'm very driven
Mhm,
and I love to
mhm,
push and go, but doubt hits me
mhm,
just the same as it does anybody else.
mhm,
It's just you make a choice of pushing back against it
mhm,
or not. And nobody's perfect with it. We have our
mhm,
moments, trust me. We
mhm.
have our moments. But it's interesting how those verses are so rich that it doesn't matter what your background is,
Mhm,
it's applicable
mhm,
from that perspective,
mhm,
and it's interesting the timelines. You guys were married in '08. Micah and I were married in '07.
mhm,
I was talking with Daniel the other night and it was a good conversation, but I was joking. It's like, it's a heck of a time to come out of college, buddy.
mhm. Yeah.
I mean, '08 was the recession, which
Mhm.
wrecked us.
Well, he came out of college with a law degree
Right,
going into real estate law
right,
during
right.
a
Yeah,
recession. I
yeah,
was making more
that's
than
what he
him as
said.
a teacher. I was like, "Wait, what happened to marrying this
And
lawyer
I was
that
marrying this lawyer here.
what
I got
happened
screwed.
here?"
Well,
Okay.
that's what Mike is.
Um
She's like, what did I marry into? You know? And she came home one day, and she had just had David, and she had done maternity leave, and we were flat broke. But she had a job. She was actually doing recruiting at the time, and she was like, I don't think we had gotten like all the way rock bottom yet. And I say rock bottom, but it was for me because I'd never I thought it was just this is easy,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
But she just said, I don't want to. I want to stay at home with David, And we, like I said, that email,
Mhm.
to her, I just said, we'll figure it out,
Mhm.
and we did.
Yeah.
And I look back on that time, and then going through the alcoholism and dealing with the anti-anxiety stuff and the medications, and you go through that, and you're like, this is hell, and you're
Mhm.
pissed. I was pissed. I remember one day I'd gotten in such a predicament. We got in such a predicament, financially. I was just like, I went and bought a lottery ticket trying to. I'm serious, man.
Uh-huh.
Just trying
Yeah.
whatever, and I'm like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, watching, and I'm like, "Ah, didn't hit. I'm screwed. You know what I'm saying? But you go through that, and you're like, God, what did I do?
Mhm.
And you just can't. But now I look back on it, and I'm like, it prepared me. It's just like you
Mhm.
said,
Yeah.
'08
Absolutely.
prepared you for
Mhm.
2015. That
Mhm.
prepared me for being able to give a testimony for when we're going through, scaling times with the company or whatever hits us. I'm just like, it's all good.
Mhm.
We're gonna be okay. It
Yeah.
it 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 just it's just a muscle, and trust me, I don't yearn for it.
Mhm.
Because it hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts, but that time is needed. And I always go back to, you know, you love your children, and it's the closest thing that you can with your children that you can come. It's the closest thing you can find to how God feels for us,
Mhm.
and it's still very imperfect compared to Him. But if we, as imperfect, sinful people, take care of and love of our own children, how much more
Mhm.
does He love us and perfectly love us, right? So just
Mhm.
like we refine our children, put them through well, you need to do this and to grow them and to refine them. He does the same thing
Mhm.
for us.
Mhm.
So I do want to add, and Chadwick's going back to that too. It's where we
Mhm.
met. It's
Plug for
funny.
Chadwick's. Body
Absolutely.
by Chadwick's right
Body
here.
by Chadwick's.
Yeah.
Clayton, our COO. I think he saw you were wearing a UT outfit or something, or you had some garb on, which is just
I don't
like
we met on the bike. Yeah, Clayton and I. Yeah.
instead of working out, what were
Yeah.
you doing, Clayton? You
Yeah.
were talking.
No, he was on the bike working out. Yeah. He was on the bike working out
I
and
know.
I think he was doing intervals or something and I was just doing a low stem day and just so I didn't envy him and yeah, we just chatted and yeah, it was so sweet.
Yeah.
Um yeah.
It's crazy the backgrounds, the testimony
Mhm.
that he has with colon cancer that you had, and just seeing God work, and it's a blessing, Jamie.
Mhm.
So kind of segueing off of that, when you went through all this with your dad, and obviously with William, what were the effects on you? Not just mentally, but specifically physically. And then how important has staying in a good
Mhm.
group fit class? How much has that impacted your life?
Yeah, it's I mean, you know, our age now, I know weight training is big and needed
Yeah,
and everything, but honestly, for my mental health, I need
yeah,
to work out and I need to have an outlet, have a release just physically for my body.
amen.
Yeah, it's a lot more mental for me and I've done, back in the day, a thing called beatbox. It was like high intensity, like hit workouts. That was great. I was in great shape. And so I've always,
Now hold on a second. Don't skim pad. What's this beatbox thing now?
well, it doesn't exist anymore,
Oh,
but it
okay.
was,
I'm gonna have to go try one of those classes out
no, it was
just to
all
see.
women, but it was like high intensity, lots
Yeah.
of squats, burpees. Like I was in great shape,
Is it more
but
body weight stuff?
no, it was all like it was like a group class.
Okay.
It was you were like kind of dancing-ish, which I kind of liked. It was
Yeah.
like to music. It was
Yeah.
great, but your burpees, squats, you're doing all lots of jumping.
Got it.
Later you have a bunch of kids, the whole jumping thing isn't great. So, but I've always and then I love like locally here the format
Mm,
I have done. It's heated kind of power yoga
mhm.
type. So I've always gravitated.
Are you doing power yoga?
No,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
solely Chadwick's now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I've heard the yoga thing's good. And I mean, I was telling somebody this morning, I'm like, I spend more time maintenance
Mhm.
than I do actually lifting, just
Yeah.
making sure that I don't hurt something. But
Yes. Which that's why I train 2 days at Chadwick's and then go in and do the bike or like this morning I was on the rower or something like that,
yeah.
just to kinda help with the conditioning piece. But working out for me has been super important because
Mm,
I can fall into, um I don't know, it just helps me get up, get going. I don't know. It just it provides mental clarity for me.
hmm.
All of that. I just when I physically move my body, it really helps with depression, all of just kind of fighting back of grief and sadness and all of that.
God gave us these bodies, these vessels, and we need to take care of them. I mean, they're a phenomenal
Mhm.
tool,
Mhm.
and so much, in fact, that how long we've been studying the human body, and people
Mhm.
still don't have
Mhm.
it all. I mean, they
Mhm.
kind of know. It's
Mhm.
interesting. Zach and I were talking the other day. He's like, we still don't really know what happens when a muscle fires because you have to like be inside the muscle.
Right.
Think about
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
for
I don't know
most.
how you go through childbirth. I know you don't, but as a woman going through childbirth,
I passed a kidney stone once. They said that was close, but
it's not. I doubt it. I don't know. I've never passed a kidney stone, but just talking about the body and just the miracle of it to go through childbirth and not believe in a God that just, I mean, all the things that could go wrong go right to have a healthy baby. It's our bodies are incredible.
absolutely. Down to, we talk a lot about VO2 training.
Mhm,
VO2 training is your body's ability to process oxygen efficiently, and it goes all the way down to mitochondria, which is the mitochondria is what creates ATP, which is your body's main energy source. And on the cell wall of these mitochondria is literally it's a rotary motor. And if you don't know what a rotary motor is, you can look it up, but it's the simplest form of motor possible known to man that can evolve. And so if you think about it, if you don't have that motor or that cell, you don't have ATP, you don't have life. Now, this
mhm,
ATP is what everything.
mhm,
You take one part away from that motor, it doesn't work. It's how
mhm,
simple it is. So that can't evolve. It has to be built,
mhm,
created, and then run, and then have an ability to reproduce, which it's all there. And,
mhm,
we talk a lot about the VO2 training specifically, which is why I kind of dug into what that is, but it just takes oxygen, nutrients from your food, and creates ATP. And so when you think about it like that, how can there not
mhm.
be a creator?
Right.
So speaking of creation,
Mhm,
let's talk a little bit about, kind of fast forwarding, the beautiful story that came out of William, faithfully restored.
mhm,
Let's talk about that a little bit. When did the creation of that idea
mhm.
come around? Let's
Yeah.
talk about that journey because it's awesome, man.
Yeah, it's so great. So I have a tight-knit friend group, and so as we were all starting to have kids,
Mm,
one of my best friends, Jamie Hamilton, found out that they couldn't have biological children.
mm,
So, we're early 30s and, having kids and they find this out and no one else in the group had struggled with infertility. So kind of walked through that with them. They went through the adoption process,
mm,
adopted a little boy, Jack. He was the same age as William. And then also in 2015, earlier in the year, in June, my friend Heather got diagnosed with breast cancer. She had just turned 30, diagnosed with breast cancer.
mm,
And so, also something we had never walked through. I mean, super early to get diagnosed. And so, kind of walked through that with her. And then in December of that same year, William dies,
mm,
child loss, something, none of us have dealt with. But we all had each other. And whenever that was happening with Jamie, another friend, had a late term miscarriage. And we were like, you know what? Let's everyone write them notes, just a couple notes. We'll put them all together. We'll put like things in a little basket to kind of little happies to make them feel better and
mm,
drop them off.
mm.
And so when things like that happened, we had notes to read for the next 30 days. So when
Yeah.
Heather gets diagnosed, we do that. When Jamie drives to Florida to get Jack, when she goes to appointments, anything that we're like, we don't really know what to do, but we
Yeah.
know we have to show up in some way.
Mm,
And so we were able to see the power of just being seen and known and reminded that you were loved in your pain,
mhm,
how powerful that was. And so when we got back, William choked on a Friday. We spent all weekend at Vanderbilt. He went in for a transplant surgery, whole nother story. On Monday, we get home from Vanderbilt to an empty house,
mm,
and that was on my back porch was a care package full of goodies and all these notes from my friends. And I was like, okay, I guess it's my turn now.
yeah.
And so the Lord really used the community that I had. I mean, like Daniel said, our community, our friends, our family, our church, Ensworth was so great. Strangers, I had a
Mm,
stranger drop off something in my mailbox, a Cane Prime gift card.
mm.
And she's like, "You don't know me, but I've been praying for your family." And she said, "I just want you and your husband to go out on a date."
Love Cane Prime, by the way.
Oh, so good.
Phenomenal.
Okay. Little side note, we go there, not the time that we use the gift card, but after Faithful Restored, we took some donors there.
Mm,
The girl that gave us that gift card was in the
no
restaurant
way.
that night. She sends over a note and she said, "I could not believe it when you walked in this restaurant. I am the one who gave you the Cane Prime gift card and sent us over dessert. And the donors, I was like telling them, they're like, "Did you set this up?" I'm like, "I did not set." I mean, that would have been cool, but so cool. We were loved on by so many
You couldn't have
people.
planned
I
that.
could not have planned it.
Yeah.
What a great God we serve. And for her, I know it had to be like unbelievable to see me walk in and be like, "Oh my gosh, this is just really cool."
Well, the
So,
interesting thing, and I want you to go back to that, but you don't know what she was dealing with. She may have needed that little reminder
absolutely.
too.
And
And
yeah, because I mean, in starting Faithful Restored, I mean, I knew what it felt to be loved on, and I also knew what it felt to serve others. I knew what the Lord does whenever you serve others because he gave us the opportunity in that friend group to walk alongside Heather in the cancer diagnosis. She relapsed under a year later. I
mm,
mean, we walked through that again with her. And so anyway, we for that tight friend group just had a lot going on.
oh yeah.
And 6 months after William died, we were on vacation and one of Daniel's cousins found out that in her neighborhood a 8-year-old child, Hayes Springer, passed away in a car wreck.
Mm,
So I didn't know that family, but I had just kind of heard from, their neighbor that then found out. And I get home from that vacation and a mutual friend called me and said, "Hey, I don't know if you've heard about Hayes, but what were some things that people did for you that we could do for Jenny Rebecca, the mom?" And so I kind of list some meaningful support. And then
mm,
I wrote her a note and I said, "I'm only 6 months ahead of you. This is really hard, but
mm,
you are gonna be okay, and I'm here if you need anything." And the way the Lord used that friendship, having both experienced the loss of a son, was so powerful. So even though both Jenny, Rebecca, and I are surrounded by community, there was just a weight in the words to each other
mm.
because we knew what now different situations. William was two and a
Yeah.
half, choked. Hayes was 8 years old, car wreck. But having both lost a son was really powerful. And so the weight of our words when I can call her and be like, "Okay, well, you're going to get out of bed. Like, we're going to go for a walk,"
Mm,
just kind of ring a little different whenever she can't say, like, "You don't know what I'm going through."
yes.
So I knew that too. So,
Your words carried way more weight.
yes. Yeah.
And I use that all the time. You can't talk to somebody about, let's say, because we talk a lot about with our staff about the power of discipline,
Mhm.
and it's in the Bible. In
Mhm.
Hebrews, it talks about
Mhm.
discipline. You can't talk to being disciplined unless you're willing to I'm gonna almost said one and then B. Anyways, unless you have been undisciplined.
Mhm.
Two, are willing to share
Mhm.
that you were undisciplined
Yeah.
and be open about it. And then three, have become disciplined.
Mhm.
And you create an empathy and a connection spiritually
Absolutely.
that allows you to connect with them. But the only way to go through it is to go through it.
Mhm.
And to go through it with it, and it's so hard, but now it's turned into something that is just beautiful, man.
Mhm.
You
We
know.
knew what that was like. And then you also, you walk through something, you become kind of that person, people reaching out, "Did you hear about this person that lost a
Mm,
child? Did you hear about this person?" And so we were experiencing that with infertility, adoption, early cancer diagnosis, child loss. And so we just kept like hearing about all these situations and we were like, "I think we can do something
mm,
to help these women." And so we were like, "Let's meet once a month. We'll write notes to all these women, send them a little something, and just
yeah.
pray for them by name," because we also knew what it felt like to be prayed for.
Yeah.
And that is a huge part of Faithful Restored. Like even that day I met Clayton, he's like sharing me with his story. And it's like, I
I
could have
love that
easily
guy.
said, like, "Oh man, I will pray for you as you walk through this." But one thing that one church sermon after that, I'm like, "This is what I'm doing." I'm like, "I want to pray for you right now. Like, do you care if I?" So the day I met him, like, he doesn't know me or anything. And we're like in Chadwick's. It's like, I don't want to say that I'm going to walk out of here praying for you. Like, I want to pray for you right now. And so prayer is a huge part of Faithful Restored. Um, So we were like, let's meet once a month. We'll pray for these women by name and write them a little note. Let them know they're loved. Let them know they're not alone, and let them know there's hope in Jesus.
Mm.
So as we're kind of doing this, the first time we meet, it's on my back porch, rain's pouring down, and just have all these list of names. And we're like, okay, we're going to do this once a month and just be really intentional about what we're doing. We're
Mm.
not going to have wine. We're not going to like invite other people. It's not going to become this girls' night. Like, we're going to be intentional about our time.
Such a great word, isn't it?
Yes.
Intentional.
Everything about Faithful Restored is intentional. And then in January of 2019, Fellowship Bible Church, where three of us go, started a series of James. And so I even just looked back Sunday on my notes from all those sermon notes. And it was the timing of all that was so good because I sat there week after week listening to James and really felt called. Like, it was an act of faith series
Yeah.
is what it was called. And it was like, there is something active we can do of hearing all these women that are hurting.
Mm.
And so that really helped kind of spur us on. And so the four of us, early 2019, we're like, you know what, this can turn into something. We had no shortage of names, and we're like, you know what, I think we can start a nonprofit. Googled how to start a nonprofit. I
Yeah.
was finishing up 10 years of teaching. Our board meetings, which was one of the things on Google said you had to start doing, were the four of us like sitting around. And I remember in one of them, I was like, okay, does anyone feel like they should leave their job to kind of get this off the ground?
Yeah.
I think two of them didn't even have jobs, and they said no. And I was like, okay, I really felt, I think I'm meant to leave, which was
Felt
like my
purpose, man.
dream teaching job. Like, I loved Ensworth. I loved it there. And the Lord really pulled that desire from me,
Yeah.
which I'm so grateful, and was such a gift because I knew it was very clear. So I finished that year. We plan a launch event in August of 19, apply for our paperwork, and we're like, we're just going to do a launch event, share our hopes and dreams of Faithful Restored. And I left my teaching job early in August, like right before school started. Daniel and I were not really on the same page about me leaving teaching, and really wrestled with it all summer.
Uh,
And
he's more conservative.
he
That's
told me, he was like, what do you want to do? He said, you need a job.
Listen,
And I
man. That
kind of
guy is
disagree
so
with,
well
but that's
spoken.
fine.
I'm telling you, man. He is a well put together dude. I don't mean not weird. You know what I'm saying? But like talking with him on the phone, he's very like
He's
he.
deliberate.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
don't talk like you. You know.
he is from Alabama,
Yeah,
surprisingly.
but
He
he
can,
talks
yeah,
very, very,
he
very
does.
professionally and but very well thought out and
Mhm,
just a little bit more on the conservative. But I
mhm,
just want to add this real quick too. What you found was purpose,
mhm.
and I think initially that purpose because my mom she was a counselor, a school counselor for 25 years. She had her master's from UT.
Oh, go balls.
Um, and the one word that I would sum up her is serve.
Mhm,
Like the good teachers that are there are typically called. They have a
mhm,
gifting for serve.
mhm,
And that was your purpose, man. But
mhm.
the
Yeah.
Lord was just like, hey, Jamie, I got more purpose over here that's even
Mhm,
more fulfilling for
mhm.
you
Absolutely.
to teach women
Mhm.
how to go through these
Yeah.
things.
It really, yeah, I felt such a peace about it. I wanted to get Faithfully Restored off the ground and promote organ donation because that's part of William's story. Daniel's like, "That's not a job." And I was like, I mean, valid. That's not a job. And so I just really wrestled with it, and I left my teaching job in early August, and then
Mm.
we had this launch event and just shared our hopes and dreams of Faithful Restored, and had probably about 100 women there. And so our whole mission is, no matter what a woman is walking through, we want them to know they're loved, not alone, and there's hope in Jesus. So we take in prayer requests from across the country. From the beginning, we wanted it women, no matter what they're walking through. Like, we hope it's not child loss and cancer diagnosis,
Right.
but really, I think we'll speak as founders, and it's like I think the enemy would like for women in the room to think, well, at least I didn't lose a child, or at least I didn't do this.
Mm,
But it's like your valley is your valley, and the Lord calls us to walk alongside each other in whatever it is. And so I think that's a lie that I think the enemy can get in there of, that their struggle is not worthy of anything, and just
mm,
kind of for them to keep it to themselves. So no matter what, anxiety, depression, we serve a lot of women walking through divorce, which is
yeah,
isolating.
right.
Um, and so we wanted women everywhere across the country and no matter what they were walking through. So we just shared our hopes and dreams. And someone in that room didn't know anything about us. A friend invited, called me later and said, "Hey, we want to do an end of the year donation." So that was in August. And I was like, anytime you can donate,
Yeah,
whenever. And so they donated $10,000, which was, we were all using our own money. So we're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And such just like when this couple, I mean, it makes me want to cry, put wind in our sails
yeah, oh, yeah,
in a way that Faithfully Restored would not be what it is today without their early support, and continued support to this day. But that early support was really just like confirmation, like we believe in your mission.
yeah.
And so that was in August, and they donated $10,000. We met with the wife in December, and she sat down for coffee and she said, "My husband and I feel called to pay your salary for you to be employed by Faithfully Restored."
Mm,
And I share that because I wasn't even praying bold enough prayers.
I know.
Like that wasn't even, I thought, okay,
We've all
maybe
been guilty.
a year later. I mean, I was really losing money working because we had Annie at home by this point. We went out, I kind of forget to say Annie in our story. After William died, we had another little girl, Annie, who's
I know.
fantastic. But I was losing money paying for childcare for Annie when I was working, and they saw the vision and believed in us, and they were like, "Hey, we think you should be employed, and we're gonna pay for you to be employed." So
And that was that affirmation.
yes, and
That
that
was
was
that
really what
affirmation.
we
Yeah.
needed. I mean, we would have kept doing what we were doing, but not the way that we were able to have someone kind of breathe life into the
Oh,
organization.
absolutely. But
Yeah.
the one thing I want to point out on this that I think a lot of people miss is, Jamie, did you have it all figured out?
No, I didn't have anything figured
No.
out.
Was it perfect by any means?
No.
No. And most people want to get it perfect. And a lot of that is
Mhm.
just, they're just delaying what they
Mhm.
don't want to do. You just got to
Mhm.
start.
I think fear plays a big
Oh,
factor in
it's
that.
huge
Mhm.
fear and doubt and everything else. But the question I try to ask myself is, you know, it's not what what will happen if I do this. It's what will not happen
Right.
if I do this.
Mhm.
What will I when I'm 80 and we're all gonna die,
Mhm.
unless good Lord comes back, which I'm rooting for soon. But you know, but when I look back on my life, am I gonna regret not doing that? And that
Mhm.
was, we when we jumped back into the entrepreneurial ship and I'd fully healed back and I want to say rebuilt myself from a discipline standpoint to and able to weather
Mhm.
everything. We were making good money. I mean, I was making really good money. I was doing this kind of on the side as a
Mhm.
side hustle and, had a great job, great career path. Was kind of like the number two guy but I just felt like I had a bigger purpose
Mhm.
and it was time.
Mhm.
And, it was scary and we didn't have it all figured out. We
Mhm.
had experience in the past from other,
Mhm.
but that's the important thing, man. If you truly have a purpose
Mhm.
that's calling on you and
Mhm.
you don't act on it, I always, discipline weighs ounces,
Mhm.
regret weighs tons.
Right.
That regret is something I don't want to carry with me. And
Mhm.
I haven't been perfect in it, but that's the one thing I want to point out
Mhm.
is you didn't have it all perfect. You didn't have it figured out. You were still given affirmation. You still did go through a
Mhm.
period where you were
Mhm.
struggling and
Mhm.
losing money,
Mhm.
so to speak.
Mhm.
But that's that buy-in. That's
Mhm.
that refinement. That's that test.
And I think I look back on that summer when it was like, do I leave work? Do I not? Do we fully jump in and start? Because I knew if I didn't leave my job and tried to do Faithfully Restored on the side,
Hmm.
it just wouldn't have taken off the way it would. It needed the
And
time.
and back to your life verse, James 1, 2 through 8.
Mhm.
You had asked for wisdom,
Right. Yeah.
and you had taken that step, but you still had a little bit of doubt. But once you
Mhm.
took that step and you said,
Mhm.
you know what, screw it,
Yeah.
no doubt, I'm all in. You were
Mhm.
no longer like a wave of the sea.
Right. Right.
You were
Absolutely.
standing firm on
Mhm.
Him, and
Mhm.
I hesitate to say, make that jump. You're going to be good.
Mhm.
This is a personal thing between you and the Lord that we all
Mhm.
have to figure out.
Mhm.
And the question is, so what if you take the jump and it doesn't work out?
Mhm.
You start over again.
Right.
Who cares?
Yeah.
That's life.
But I think the key there is to be super prayerful
Mm,
in like I look back at that summer and I was because I wanted what the Lord wanted for me. It was like, Lord, if you want me to stay at teaching, I'll stay. If you want me to leave, I want to
mm,
leave. And I was I wanted wisdom
yeah,
and I didn't want to doubt. I wanted clarity, not clarity on like needing to know what was next, but clarity on what the Lord wanted for me.
yeah,
And so I was given a piece of, I don't know what's next, but I know this is the step you want me to take.
yeah,
And so, I think you can get comfortable in things and you're not as intentional in your prayer life. But whenever you're really desperate for, Lord, what do you have for me? Your prayer life, is on fire. And so I try to stay very spirit led. Even now, everything we do at Faithful Restored, I try to stay very spirit led of Lord, what would you have for us in this decision and whatnot. But yeah, very to encourage people to if you feel a calling from the Lord to do something, lean into that, pray about it, and then do it
yeah. Amen.
for
I,
sure.
I, I
Yeah.
agree. I agree. I mean, like it's just not going to be perfect. So, fast forward
Mm-hmm.
to today. You know, you guys have grown. You just moved.
We just we were in the old Dave Ramsey building
Mhm.
since September of 2020. Loved it there. We were with other kingdom minded nonprofits. It was a great space for us, location for us, but just it was kind of a co-working space. And so we wanted space of our own. So we just moved downtown Franklin, 124 First Avenue South. Come by and see us.
Nice.
And it's amazing and really a space that we're creating for women. So now we receive over 100 different prayer requests a month. So that's 100 different women, mainly from over 80% of the time, it's a friend. Like, say, Micah submits your neighbor that just lost her spouse, or maybe her aunt.
Micah hadn't like submitted. I've got a husband who's nuts or
No,
anything
we
like
only
that.
serve women.
Okay,
Yeah, no, no, she
perfect.
can. She's gonna
Well,
have
she
to
may
take that
need some
elsewhere.
help. I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
no, no,
Sorry.
only women. So, but mainly it comes from a friend. We love hearing from the woman who's walking through something because you just have better access to them into individualizing that care. But when those prayer requests come in, so over 100 a month, Kelly on our team gets that email
Yeah,
that she's individually responding to that person, talking about just that we're going to pray for them. Every prayer request that comes in gets a care package from us.
yeah,
So we have volunteers actually coming in today at 11 to make care packages. So they're all handmade and individualized. So if you come in to volunteer, we have a couple times a week have volunteer opportunities. That early on was something we wanted to do because as founders, we knew what it felt like to serve. And
mm,
so we wanted to give women, and a lot of our volunteers volunteer out of their own pain. A lot of our volunteers volunteer because, maybe they've stayed at home with their kids are now in high school, their kids are in college, and they're looking for a purposeful
yeah,
way to spend their time.
yeah,
And so our volunteers are a whole ministry in itself, which I love. But they'll come in, they might get a slip of paper. It'll say, Jamie, loss of child, Heather, cancer diagnosis. And we have a store set up. The store is all pink. We painted every
that's
wall
awesome.
pink. It's so great. They come in, they hand curate that care package, they write a handwritten note, pray over the package, and everything is shipped from our offices in Franklin. And then on top of that, which kind of makes us unique, is everything is sent in a bright pink package. So you can, like, if 80% are from a friend,
Mm,
those packages are arriving without that person knowing.
yeah,
So it's really cool to get. a package in the mail from strangers with really nice stuff, with a handwritten note saying you're being prayed for. And the Lord just really honors that. We've heard time after time how perfect the timing of those arrival of those packages are.
Yeah.
So I always remind our staff, like, nothing's late. Like, the Lord has perfect timing. And so, but then what makes us unique is after that initial care package, like, we'll gear up for Mother's Day, and any woman in our system that's lost a child, a spouse, or their own mom, and this will be their first Mother's Day without that person,
Yeah.
will be prayed for by name and get a specific first Mother's Day package.
Yeah.
So those are all the same. They go out. So we'll send out hundreds of those
Yeah.
and really see those women, because I know what it feels like to prepare for your first Mother's Day without a child. And
Right.
so to have people, I mean, I lost William in December. So then come, before my first Mother's Day in May,
Mhm.
people have kind of moved on. December to May, people have kind of moved on
Sure.
with our story. There's another person that's lost someone. And so that continued care piece from women that know what it feels like to continue to be remembered,
Yeah.
especially that first year that's so hard, all those firsts. We'll do that for Mother's Day, Father's Day if it applies, first holiday. So
Mm.
in November, we'll have hundreds of packages go out for people experiencing their first holidays. And that note will say, we know this holiday looks different
Mm.
because as they're preparing, maybe it's been, 9 months since they lost their
Right.
spouse. They're preparing for that holiday season without them is brutal.
And I would think that those may be even as important, if not a
Mhm.
little bit more, because in the
Mhm.
beginning everybody's
Yeah.
surrounding you, but 9 months down the road, you had mentioned
Mhm.
earlier about isolation, and
Mhm.
you and I have talked about, and I share with everybody the anxiety issues that I went
Mhm.
through, and it doesn't matter. Like these were like full on, like
Mhm.
withdrawal, and you go tell somebody about that, they can't feel that, and that's why
Mhm.
you would mention earlier,
Mhm.
anxiety is one of those things that it's hard to talk about. Most people are scared to
Mhm.
talk about it, but your perspective, your valley, so to speak, that you're going through is yours and
Mhm.
yours alone, and
Mhm.
it's that isolation piece, I think, that is so important
Mhm.
to just remind people,
Mhm.
hey,
Truly, like, bringing light into the darkness of
amen, yeah,
what, the enemy would have for you. Whether and especially when you walk through something, the enemy wants you to feel like you're the only one walking through it. Whether
yeah,
it's anxiety, whether it's a miscarriage, whether it's loss, whatever it is, like, that is his goal, is to isolate you,
yeah.
not ask for help, and you kind of go into this downward spiral of, why would the Lord do this to me? Or is a loving God wouldn't get me to this place or whatever.
Or
So
nobody
truly,
else is going through this.
exactly.
I'm
Yeah.
just, some loser or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
And, it really is the body. And that's why Paul
Mhm.
talks about the body
Mhm.
of Christ.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of what you've created. And so it sounds like you've got just this machine.
Mhm.
We talk a lot about
Mhm.
having standards, but this machine to follow up that only you could have developed as a person who goes through it.
Absolutely. Mhm. And now that we're, big enough, that continued care piece, that's kind of our loss cycle that goes
Yeah.
in. But then we serve, if you have breast cancer, but we put in there and do follow-up notes, follow-up care. And now we're big enough. Our budget's 975,000, 6 years in, which is incredible.
It is incredible.
It's
The
unreal.
the stat I was telling Clayton the other day. I said, the stat. There's only maybe 2 to 3% of any business, nonprofit or otherwise. I'm
Mhm.
sure nonprofits
Mhm.
even tighter, that ever hit seven
Mhm.
figures.
Mhm.
Right. I
Yeah.
mean, so doing that in itself is incredible. I,
Mhm.
I would say nonprofits, it's probably
Mhm.
0.2% or
Mhm.
3%.
Yeah.
So
It's been awesome. And so now that continued care piece, like, Kelly will kind of communicate. So we've paid mortgages for widows. We've sent grieving moms on trip. Like, when we lost William in December, I came to Daniel in January and was like, we had Madeline, who was 4 at the time. And I was so grateful for her because our house wasn't silent. It was a
yeah,
lot quieter, not having a 2-year-old boy running everywhere. But parenting was really hard in that deep grief. Like, one morning she came up to my bed and she was like, "Mom," she's like, "at least I didn't die." She's like, "I'm still here." And I thought, Okay, I need to get my crap together. Like
Yeah.
I can't do this. And so I went to Daniel and I was like, I've got to get out of here. Like I'm really struggling.
Mm.
And so I flew out to Arizona for a couple days. And so I knew what it felt like to just remove myself and fully, like, it was the first time I could take a deep breath since him dying
Yeah.
and feel like, okay, Lord, like I can do this. You're meeting me here. Like in the sweetest ways, he met me even out in Arizona. So we've done that for women. It's like I know what that feels like. Like I cried on the plane back. Like I didn't want to come back. And I knew the reality that was coming, that I was going to be faced with of that grief. But so we'll do that for women, or truly we try to individualize our care of, we've sent women to acupuncture, we've sent them to the spa, it's like trying to stay spirit led. And Lord, how would you have us show this woman walking through this, that you're there for them?
Yeah.
And so it's really cool. I don't know another nonprofit that operates how we do.
Mm.
And it's been really cool to be able to individualize our care and really cater to what women need.
Yeah.
And so, we couldn't do early on, it was just care packages, but now that we're big enough, able to do stuff like that. And then we have projects like, well, in May, probably our fifth year with Vanderbilt. And every mom or caretaker at Vanderbilt Children's Hospital on Mother's Day will get a care package for us. So we do
Mm.
450. So that's our biggest community project.
Yeah.
Just to see those women in the hospital and let them know that they are loved and being thought of, not prayed
Yeah.
for. You
Yeah.
can't say anything about being prayed for with Vanderbilt, but we're thinking of them. And that's been really sweet because
And, I want
we've
to
seen the fruit of
touch on
that.
that too. Paul talked about this in the New Testament. I think a lot of people may hear that and say, well, you know what? We're just not going to. Well, Paul talked about in the New Testament, I will do whatever it takes to get the word out. If I need
Hmm.
to be like a Gentile, not,
Hmm.
he wasn't going to sacrifice his integrity for Christ, but
Mhm.
if he needed to be what he needed to be to win people to Christ, that's what he
Mhm.
did.
Mhm.
And, instead of saying, well, we're just not going to mess with
Mhm.
Vanderbilt because of that. No, you just adjust and,
Mhm.
you know, you pick your battles
Mhm.
in
Well, and
order
the Lord
to.
doesn't need us to write
He does not.
that. Coolest thing, someone came in our office a couple months ago and we're volunteering and we're like, gosh, probably a year ago now. But Kelly was like, "How did you find out about us?" And she said, "I was one of the moms at Vanderbilt." She had driven from Mount Juliet, I think. And she was like, "I was one of the moms at Vanderbilt and I got a care package from y'all." And she said,
Yeah.
"That care package really brought me closer to the Lord."
Mm,
And it was such a reminder to your point of the Lord doesn't need it. It doesn't need to be written on there that
no,
we're praying for them
no.
or anything. And so our goal of really, no matter who it is, I mean, people will ask us, do you only serve believers? And it's like the cool thing about walk and what we do is not only we don't know if they're a believer, we
Right.
don't know what they look like, we don't know where they live. All these struggles are such an equalizer
Yeah.
in that it doesn't matter. We serve women that have a ton of money. It
Yep.
doesn't matter. We serve women that don't have a lot of money. It does not matter. And so I love that about our nonprofit of I had people showing up for me in ways and get like that gift card.
Hmm.
Could we have spent $150 at Kane Prime? Absolutely. The weight of a stranger dropping off
Yeah.
a gift card to us and how that made me feel seen by someone, unbelievable. And so I love that about our nonprofit of it doesn't we don't know a lot of those things and it just doesn't matter
Yeah.
because when you walk through child loss, when you walk through divorce, when are struggling with anxiety, it just doesn't matter how much money you have or where
Mm-mm.
you live or any of that. And so I love that about our nonprofit. I think it's very unique.
It is. Well, sin doesn't matter. It affects all of us. And, a lot of people are, you'll hear people say, well, how can God let that happen? Well, he actually
Yeah,
made everything perfect for us.
right.
We're the ones that screwed it up.
Mhm.
And we're living with that.
Mhm.
Thank God he sent Jesus,
Mhm.
right? But, it's an opportunity. It gives you an opportunity to not try to deceive anybody. It just gives you an opportunity to love
Mhm.
somebody, right?
And love like Jesus. I mean, that is truly what we are doing
He didn't serve the healthy. He
is
he worked. He went and spent
loving
time with
like
the sick.
Jesus.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I agree. Um, so I want to talk real quick about one of the really cool things, other than faithfully restored, that came out of this, and that was Ava.
Mm.
Let's talk about Ava.
Yeah, I love talking about them. We actually just spent last weekend skiing with them. So
Where did y'all go again? Breckenridge?
no, we went to Wisconsin. Do you know they're skiing in Wisconsin?
I did not.
Yeah.
I did not.
Someone was like, "It's
I knew
flat
they
in
had a lot of
Wisconsin." I was like,
snow, but
I don't know. That's where we're going." And it was great. It was awesome. It was incredible. Exceeded our expectations of skiing in Wisconsin. Now, I did hear that we went to the best place in Wisconsin to ski, but it was fantastic. But it wouldn't have mattered where we went with them. I was like, sign us up. We could have gone cross country skiing. But so when William choked on Friday, Saturday morning, we had a meeting at Vanderbilt. He was at Vanderbilt, had a meeting with the What's Next guy,
mm,
this guy, Tony from Tennessee Donor Services. I didn't know who was going to be in that meeting. I didn't know what it was. I thought we were kind of planning the funeral. And he presented the option of organ donation to Daniel and I.
mm,
And, when I met William at the hospital, his heart was not beating. And a doctor, and I had a piece. I knew he was going to be gone. I'd actually so crazy, like the Holy Spirit in that we were at Williamson at that time. And I just felt like, okay, they're going to pronounce this little 2.5-year-old dead. All these doctors and nurses are just going to be heartbroken to
mm,
watch this situation. I do not want my child to be a reason that they doubt Jesus. And so I was like, I'm going to pray, claiming the Lord is still good in this moment. So I'm like rehearsing a prayer to pray. And then the doctor's like, we have one more round of medicine that we can give him to have his heart to start beating. Well, in my mind, I'm like, I've come to like, his heart is not going to, I knew he wasn't even there then. So I'm like, his heart's not going to start beating. And it
yeah,
did.
yeah.
And I was like, so then I was kind of confused and they transferred us to Vanderbilt. Anyway, so I didn't know how the situation was going to end because there he was, stable, never had any signs of brain activity,
Yeah.
stable on a ventilator. I thought, are we going to have to make a decision here? Like, what does this look like? So Saturday morning, we go into this meeting and he presents organ donation. And it was such an answered prayer to like, okay, this is how this story can end.
Mm,
And our child can give life to people.
yeah.
Like, I would have taken 3 more minutes with him, and if we could do that for another family that was sitting in the hospital waiting on an organ, like, we're all in. So Daniel and I didn't even have a conversation. We both kinda looked at each other and we were like, "Yeah, absolutely."
Yeah.
Like, check all the boxes. I was an organ donor. I remember when I got my license, it was like, "Sure, that's fine. I won't be here anyway. I'll check it." Didn't know much about it. And Tony explained, a couple things like they're going to keep him alive longer
Mm,
to try to match as many organs, which was honestly such a blessing to us. My sister was in Europe at the time. She was able to fly back. And as odd as it sounds, that hospital room was such a sacred, intimate, just holy place.
mm-hmm.
And our nurse, Jillian, was incredible. She left us the first night, like went home that first night and said goodbye, and then she showed up the next morning and she was like, I just couldn't leave him, and showed up every day
Mm,
until the transplant. So we were so well cared for at Vanderbilt. But Saturday or Sunday, I heard a nurse say that his heart was going to Chicago, his liver was going to Texas, and his kidneys were going as a block to North Carolina. I just kind of heard a nurse say that. Normally, you don't hear that. I just overheard someone say that. So we do the transplant Monday morning, and that's kind of our answer to prayer. They take him to surgery. I didn't know this, but halfway through the surgery, they turn off the ventilator.
mm,
So that's kind of how that ends.
right.
They fly in surgeons from wherever the organs are going. And so we kind of say goodbye. He is wheeled down to surgery, and then we go home. The next day, I have some friends over.
Mm,
We're starting to make memory board. Now we're preparing for a memorial. So like we have poster boards and pictures and
mm,
you have to we had a 4-year-old. that we had told and that she had learned in church of God is good. When you die as a believer, you go to heaven. Like Lord cares for us. All these things we had to show her that we believed. It was like, do we believe this yesterday when everything's great? And do we believe it today when your brother is gone, you know? And so that was a decision Daniel and I really had to make. And, you know, he alludes to it in his letter of like, we're all in. We believe that this is true. And so it wasn't, yes, it was a dark time, but all these friends are there making it, and we are just, really showing up for Madeline.
Mhm.
And my best friend from high school had flown in, and she came over to the couch and she said, "Did anyone tell you about Ava?" And I was like, "Ava?" And another friend was like, "We weren't going to tell her." And she's like, "Well, I'm going to tell her." She's like, "We think we know where William's heart went." And I was like, "What?" And they pull up a video, and I watch Amy and Brian Martin get interviewed. The Chicago News had followed this little 18-month-old. She had waited 111 days for a heart.
Hmm.
And so they have all these videos. They have a video of a cooler being wheeled into her room the day before on Monday. This heart surgeon taking out a heart, placing it in Ava, and saying, "Welcome to your new home." And Amy and Brian get interviewed, and they were like, "We are just so grateful that someone in their darkest hour chose to give life to our little girl, and we will honor their life every day of hers." And I was like, "I love them. I love them." I'm like, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And I had heard that his heart went to Chicago. And so through Facebook of me posting stuff of William and Amy's mom posting stuff of Ava receiving a heart, we had mutual friends.
Yeah.
And so that's how they figured it out. And so they started before it got to me, they had kind of like, they knew the size of William's heart, they knew the weight of the donor, all this stuff. So they'd kind of figured it out. So I'm like, they had a whole Facebook page, Hope for Amazing Ava. And I
Yeah.
was like, I'm going to write her. And I remember looking over at Daniel as like, you can imagine the scene, like all these girls are super giddy, like, what? Oh my gosh, this is amazing. And he's like looking over, like kind of shaking his head, like, this is too much. And I was like, I think I'm going to reach out and write her, the
Yeah.
mom.
Yeah.
And he was like, no. And I was like, I think I am. I think I'm gonna do it. And so I get online and I just write her, and I was like, I don't really know if this is it, but here's what happened to William. And regardless, I'm so happy for Ava. And
Yeah.
I just will be praying for your family. And she wrote me back about 20 minutes later, and she said Ava's heart transplant was the only pediatric heart transplant at Lori's the day before. So we instantly knew. And Brian, her husband, was already sleeping, when that had happened. So she's texting me. They have an older daughter, Ella. We have an older daughter, Madeline. So we start texting pictures of it, like just crazy, like a story that only God could write
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah.
And so we confirmed it the next day that they would, that's not normally how Organ Donation works. And so they confirmed that they flew to Nashville to get the heart, and which we already knew. And so it was really cool. We met them. That was in December of 2015. We flew up there in March of 2016 to meet them.
Yeah.
And they are just some of our best friends.
It's awesome.
Our girls, we now have Annie too. So there's 4 sisters. They call each other their heart sisters. They've put our names together and call us the Hartons, like the Herds and the Martins. We see each
That's
other
perfect.
every couple months. I
Yeah.
mean, it has been such a gift. And from early on, like I remember probably like a month after or something, me and Madeline going down into 12 South shopping. And I was like, like, I remember checking out at a store, and Madeline is 4. She would just be like, my brother just died. And, of course, the person at the things like looks at me, and I'm like, yeah, which was kind of nice because to me it felt like I'm out, I'm about, I'm dressed. Like I wanted everyone to know, like, I'm really hurting, but here I am out and about. And so
Yeah.
it's kind of nice for her to just say that. And she'd always followed up with, but he saved a little girl named Ava. And so early on, it was such a gift to us, which organ donation I feel like is talked about as a gift from the recipient
Yeah.
side. But from the donor side, it's been such a gift that I know not everyone gets,
Yeah.
and it has just been the coolest redeeming story, and so we love them, we spend holidays with them. I mean, they're part of our family, and we gained an a whole like, we're family with their family, and,
Mm.
you know, her parents come down to see us. We spend time in Michigan with her parents in the summer. I mean, her aunts, uncles, cousins, like, we gained an entire family that loves our family well, that we can, you know, especially early on, the support from them was so meaningful
Yeah.
and incredible as they were walking through this celebration time. They really and continue to recognize our heartbreak in it,
Yeah.
in just a really sweet way. And I mean, it's been incredible.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
mean, it's a testament to uh, you guys and the serving aspect, the sacrifice aspect for others, and how not only does it heal the person that's being served, but I openly think that it is way more impactful the person doing the serving,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
and the person it creates a way for them to either heal
Mhm.
or find purpose. You know, I talk
Mhm.
about with our staff all the time, the most fulfilling thing you can ever do is mentor
Mhm.
and serve another person and help them achieve,
Mhm.
whatever goal. It it's way more fulfilling than anything we do for ourselves. Now we need to fill our cups too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I guess a couple of closing questions. How do you now kind of fill your cup? You know, you
Mhm.
you serve all these other people
Mhm.
through, the organization, and I know that I know what it's like,
Mhm.
to be pulled at all the time.
Mhm.
How do you fill your cup?
Mhm.
And kind of rejuvenate and heal a
Mhm.
little bit, to then show up and do it again. Because in order for your cup to run over, it's
Right.
got to get filled.
Mhm. I mean, part of that is working out at Chadwick is a part of that. I mean, I
Yeah.
hate that another
No,
plug,
man.
but part
Hey,
of that
it's the
is
truth.
taking
I
the
agree.
time because, it cuts into my workday.
Yeah.
I have to leave early to get, I mean, I'm kind of glad she has tennis now because it extends my workday, but it really is a sacrifice of my workday to go and do an 8 o'clock class, be
Yeah.
done by 9, shower, and go to work. Um, but that is part of filling my
Oh,
cup.
yeah. But the
Mhm.
perspective on that is it does, but it makes you healthier, which
Mhm.
allows you to tackle your workday
Mhm.
better,
For sure. Yeah.
and that's the way because we do our workouts with our staff here.
Mhm.
People are like, you guys pay for that? I'm like,
Mhm.
how? It's an investment,
Yeah,
man.
absolutely. Yeah,
It's an investment.
for sure. That's part of it, is taking the time to, you know, to invest in those healthy things for my body. I also, when I get away, like if I travel,
Yeah.
I check out. Like I'm no,
So do I.
and I want to lead that for
So
my
do I.
staff of like, this is not the end all be all. Our work here is not the end all be all. Like, I
Mm,
want you to prioritize your relationship with Christ, your family. We're definitely family first. We're all part time, actually,
yeah.
and that's by design. I it kind of it makes it harder having an entire part time staff, but I always want Christ first, family second. I want to lead from that.
Yeah.
So I take time and go away, and I'm gone. And I think that is really healthy for me. And then in December, I go away every year over the anniversary for
Mhm.
William, with Daniel. And I think it's important to really acknowledge and kind of get back in December of I let myself back to that place of deep grief because I mean 10 years later I don't feel that deep grief on a daily basis. I mean praise God.
Yeah.
But in December I let myself get back there, and so I almost pull away from work in a way I'm a little more emotionally unstable, and so I don't invest myself in all those prayer requests coming in. I really kinda back away from I can't really hear
Yeah.
all of these terrible situations that are going on.
Yeah.
And I try to have our staff recognize that of like, there's going to be times that this is overwhelming. Like, all you're hearing about are literally hundreds of women hurting and suffering. And
Yeah.
so there has to be some time. We, every year, I think it's up to $800 now, but we have a budget, just kind of a self care budget that every year we try to make more and more of like, if you want to spend it on nails, I get my nails done now. If you want to spend it on your nails, if you want to spend it on a date night with your husband, if you want to do an overnight, with your husband, whatever it is, but really trying to recognize those times of like, this is kind of taking me under. Like, I'm taking my
Yeah.
work home and not in a healthy way, and I might need to take a day off work and go to the spa.
Well, I think the bad side of it is to protect yourself. I think you're going to naturally become a little bit more calloused.
Mhm.
You see it in, people who are in that in medical field all the time.
Right.
If you're in the ER all the time dealing
Mhm.
with gunshot wounds and everything, in order
Right.
to kind of a self protective measure, you're going to
Mhm.
become less empathetic to that stuff.
Right.
And I think it's super important to mention that, we talk a lot here about harmony. A lot of people talk balance and balance. I've got a book I want to write called "Balance is BS," but it
What a
because
title.
because it is. I think it's from the pit of hell. I think balance is impossible. It's
Mhm.
impossible to be balanced completely across your
Mhm.
life. I'm going to spend 6 hours here and 6 hours here and 6 hours here. Sleep for 6 hours. You
Mhm.
just can't. So you create harmony,
Mm.
and life is about seasons. You're going to go through
Mhm.
seasons. If you get in a car wreck on your way home, you're not going to be very balanced.
Right.
So we talk about harmony, and you've got basically five. I say five areas of your life. Spiritual, mental, physical, personal, and professional.
Mhm.
And depending on the season you're in, set that expectation in that bucket where it needs to be. If you need to put some more time into the physical,
Right.
raise that bar, set your standard, and execute it.
Mhm.
If for me, as driven as I am, it's important. Like, if I tell the kids I'll be at that game, I'm gonna be at that game.
Mhm.
If I tell Micah we're gonna go out to eat, one night, just me and her, we do.
Mhm.
She and I do. We talked about intentionality
Mhm.
earlier, and we do it with our leadership team here. We do quarterly meetings where we get away and intentionally review our goals, our ambitions, our dreams. It helps us get back on the same
Mhm.
page because, as we talked
Mhm.
about, that underlying unspoken stuff can fester and turn into, and all of a sudden you're like, bro, how'd you get way over there?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
I didn't even know you were over there, but
Yeah.
it opens that up, and we take sticky notes. And Micah will have, she's so steady.
Mhm.
God bless her, man. She'll have 5 or 6 things. I've got
Yeah.
600,
God.
that I like to do. But it's so good,
Yeah. Yeah.
to get on that same page, it allows us to fill our cup and get away and reset, get the perspective back that I
Right.
think God wants
Priorities
us to,
straight. Yeah.
for sure. So,
Mhm.
last question.
Mhm.
If you were to, I guess, what would you say to a mom or a wife or someone that's sitting in a hospital room right now that's feeling alone and doesn't know where to go?
Mhm. Really kinda open it up even broader,
Mm.
whether someone's sitting in a
Wherever.
hospital room with their kid, whether they're at home with anxiety, whether they're, just getting news of diagnosed with cancer,
Yeah.
all of that, is that it is going to be okay.
Mm.
And to lean in to your faith. If you don't have faith, truly pray like, Lord, I've never even prayed to you. I don't even know how this works, but Lord, show me what you want for me. Help me just trust in you, even though I don't even know you.
Mm.
If they do have a faith, just truly like, Lord, help me surrender my will, my desire to yours, because you tell us in your word that you are a good father, that you do want the best for us. And then I try to surround yourself with a community of people that love
Yeah.
you. A lot of people don't have that, and that's one reason we started Faithfully Restored is because we knew not everyone has what we had. I mean, we
Mm.
had a really unique group of friends that just were there and showed up, and not everyone has that.
Yeah.
So, um, first step, I mean, honestly, no matter where you are, you can submit a prayer request, faithfullyrestoredwomen.com,
Cool.
and reach out to us. And we would love to be, I tell people, Faithful Restored is just another way the body of Christ shows up.
Yeah.
And so, reach out to someone, whether it's us, whether it's a close friend, whether it's a coworker, a neighbor. Don't walk whatever it is you're walking alone
Yeah.
because the Lord does not want you to do that. The enemy loves for you to feel alone, and it's going to be okay. And I would love to support you, pray for you, and truly just love you the way Jesus would.
Yeah. Well, amazing story, amazing person. And the reason we had you on, after meeting you and just, you truly have a undeniable
Mm,
mentality, and it's been built and developed. God's done that, and you embody that. Thankful to know you, and super
thank
proud
you.
of you. Super,
Thanks.
super proud of you. And you know, thankful for our relationship, and I look forward to seeing, where it goes and maybe what we can do together
Yeah.
in the future with our organizations. So, thank you, Jamie.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
you're
It's been
welcome.
great.
Cool.